Workout 4 of the 2023 Winners Coming Classic will be a chipper. 4-time, 50 overhead squats at 95, 65 pounds, 40 toes to bar, 30 front rack walking lunge steps at 95, 65 pounds, 20 bar muscle ups, 30 front rack walking lunge steps at 95, 65 pounds, 40 toes to bar, and you will finish with 50 overhead squats at 95, 65 pounds. There is a 15-minute time cap.
Start your engines.
A ceremonial high five would do nice at this point.
There it is. I like it.
I'm ready.
Full start.
I'm ready.
10 seconds. Oh shit, we're doing 30.
Mike, I love all of these workouts.
Yep.
This may be my favorite.
Why so? This
I
is
just
workout number 4 for the Winners Coming Classic.
Workout event number 4, as you would say. So it starts with 50 overhead squats. The reason I said I like it is because this is one where you really have to pace at the beginning because you go back up the ladder at the end. So if you go out too hot early, especially for those who maybe don't have the capacity to support this many reps, will blow up early, get to the bar muscle ups and get stuck. So you need to pace this correctly at the front end.
All right, before we dive into that, because we have a lot to give you in regards to strategy, and they're going to be on this movement for a second, so I think we have time. Who are we watching here?
Yeah, so Matt Gilpin is the man, the myth, the legend on the left side. He actually just moved here from Australia. He's a multi-games or multi-semifinal athlete. He's the one that's demoing the workout. David just kindly jumped in right before the workout started. So we're going to watch Matt talk over his workout for the most part.
Matt's also a coach here.
Yep, Matt moved here to coach for Training Think Tank, but he's also, I don't know, is he the fittest coach now?
He is the fittest coach.
All right, yeah, so talking to them beforehand, their strategy was when you look at workouts like this, it's easy to see the big sets and get sucked into, all right, well, because it's written as a big set, that means I have to go like really large unbroken sets. And they originally were talking about doing like short, fast sets so that they could have like, you know, more speed on the back half. And they start going, and Matt does like 35 unbroken reps. And he said he kept going because David hadn't dropped yet. So they immediately kind of threw their plan off. And, you know, elite athletes do that sometimes. They just go off feel and trust themselves and try not to be too rigid with structure.
Matt has the capacity to support that. I think most people, though, don't. Even if it feels good the first 50 reps, like you have another 50 overhead squats at the end of this workout with all of those things in between. The best strategy, I think, for most people is to have some kind of, you know, rest to work ratio on when you're doing the overhead squats, when you're doing the toe to bar, come up with a game plan beforehand and try to stick to a certain rest time.
Yeah. So do you think they intentionally tried to trap Allison back there behind the rig?
100%. Did you see her face?
Yeah.
She was like, how do I get out of this? Oh, no.
All right, so, yeah, going back to what I was saying with big sets like this in workouts. So we got 50 overhead squats, 40 toe to bar, 30 lunges, 20 bar muscle up, and then you go back up, 30 lunges, 40 toe to bar, 50 overhead squats. And most people, when you see that, think, all right, well, big sets I have to do, or big chunks of reps like that, like I have to do big sets. And man, to me, when I look at this, I think, you know what? If it was like 10 rounds of 10 overhead squat, 10 toe to bar, like that's the same strategy I would take. I would keep the set smaller and have a lot of short rest breaks and not get sucked into thinking like, oh, because it's a set of 50, I have to try and go like super big on this and then take like a really long break. I'm trying to keep speed of contraction high. I'm trying to keep rest breaks short. You know, some people that have the capacity like to do big working sets and then take like a really long rest. But for me personally, and especially for those that aren't at the elite level like this in certain Metcons, I like to break it up more often.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple things you have to think about before you do that. One, if you're breaking up often, taking shorter rest breaks, your heart rate.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mike, you're all over. Should we just restart? I can't see a thing.
Our TV's going crazy, so we're trying to talk over this.
I fixed it. All right.
Oh.
It's snowing. Can you? Is there
It was
any
doing
way
like a
you,
strobe where you couldn't see anything. All right, go ahead.
Is there any way you can show that? On the
No.
We're going to keep going.
So
Okay.
what was your point?
If you're going to break things up and try to minimize your total rest time, so in other words, you're doing 40 toe to bar, you're going to do sets of 5 with 3-second rest breaks. That's a good strategy for most people, even those that aren't great at toe to bar. However, it's going to increase your heart rate. Your respiration rate is going to be really high. So you have to learn how to train with a high heart rate, train with a high respiration rate, and be okay with that.
Yep.
The advantage you get there, though, is that you are able to withstand kind of like that overall the stamina fatigue that happens, right? Your core blows up or your grip blows up. and you're able to go a little bit deeper in workouts. So I think it's a good way to train and a good way to test workouts, but you have to make sure that you're practicing that ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, it's uncomfortable. It takes a lot of discipline to trust the rest breaks like that, because it's natural for me to want to like start and hold on, because I have a bad tendency of when I stop or take a rest break, it's hard for me to get going quickly again. Like I naturally want to take a few more seconds than are needed. So, you know, that's the downside of like having a high amount of rest breaks throughout something like that when you have large sets.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to training that way too. So you want to do, like in our training and compete, right? Some days we'll program where you have to do 20 unbroken of a certain movement, and that is intentional. But also we'll have intervals where it says do, you know, sets of 5 with certain rest breaks, so that you're training that high turnover, really fast movement speed, really short rest breaks. It is challenging for people, but if you train into it, it's actually going to be a faster way to get through a workout.
Yeah. Matt is flying right now. He looks super comfortable. I think he opened with a set of 8. It's 20 bar muscle ups here. This workout, you could definitely get sucked into feeling like you get to this point and you're like, man, like I'm halfway through the workout. I've done great. But you'll see it in the middle of the muscle ups. If 20 takes way longer than it should, you bit off more than you could chew. You know, like 20 is not.
Winter is coming.
Yep.
Wow.
20 is not like a small amount of bar muscle ups for a lot of people doing this, especially when you have 40 toe to bar that led into it and 50 overhead squats. Like it's going to take a lot out of the arms. So I think this is one of those where pacing the front half is going to allow you to get through that 20 much faster, where a lot of people feel like they're winning the workout on the front end, and then the bar muscle ups, they're going to take way too long rest breaks.
Yeah, I would definitely plan how you want to attack these from the beginning. Like obviously you're going to change it as you go. Once you get to the bar muscle ups, your rest times or the amount of sets that you do may change.
Yep.
But have a game plan starting off, and then transition to the bar quickly. Try to get one set in and then settle into your pace on the bar muscle ups, because again, as Mike said, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, and I think that's the one where like the short rest breaks discipline comes in big time, because you know, once you finish the bar muscle ups, the movements are pretty much downhill. Like the front rack walking lunges you can hold on to, the toe to bar you can grind through, and the overhead squats is just, you know, how bad you want to finish in a good time at that point. So I think the elites, you're going to have to push the bar muscle ups, and you're just going to have to be in a lot of pain at that point and then just hold on going downhill. For the large majority of the other people doing this workout, I honestly would expect to let the bar muscle ups are going to be pushing closer to that time cap range, and then you're finishing the bar muscle ups, and you're just going to have to be conscious of where you're at on the clock to get as many reps in as you can in the remaining time. So you'll see soon where Matt and them finish, but you know, this is, as usual, watching very talented athletes do workouts, they make it look way easier than it is.
Yeah.
So I think just be aware that, you know, after the bar muscle ups, you need to look at the clock and know where am I at time-wise.
Before everyone does this, what do you think the average score we're going to see is?
So I think for higher level RX elite athletes, you're going to see 12, 13, 14-minute range. For large majority of the other people, lower level RX intermediate athletes, I think you're going to see them finishing the bar muscle ups and getting into the lunges and the toe to bar at the end. Maybe some finishing in the overhead squats.
Yeah, if you're looking at this like as an open workout, and we're going back to the old top 10%, if you wanted to get in the top 10%, you just have to get into the bar muscle ups closer toward the end of them. If you wanted to be like top 5%, you need to be closer to the end of the workout. And then that top 1%, which is really the bubble level athletes, they're all going to finish this workout. But again, they're flying right now at 7:53. Matt's already on the toe to bar. Most people will still definitely be on the bar muscle ups at this point.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so Matt right now is just basically going until he's having trouble getting toes up to the bar. So he's almost pushing each set as like an AMRAP minus like 1 or 2 reps.
And that's a strategy that a lot of elite athletes will use. You talked about this on the overhead squats. They basically go until they kind of feel that fatigue, then they'll drop AMRAP minus 1 or 2, and then jump back up. But for most athletes, I think it's a good strategy to just like, I'm going to do 5, rest 4 seconds, 4, rest 4 seconds, 3, rest 4 seconds, 2, and then start back at 5 or something like that. Have a plan in place that kind of keeps you on strict numbers, and then a strict way to rest as well.
Yeah, I mean, a big difference is someone like Matt, who has just years of experience of pushing intensity in workouts like this. He knows his body's capabilities and his limits, and he is able to trust basically knowing like, all right, like I know where I can push to almost failure on certain things. Whereas a lot of people that are still trying to improve and get better at these types of workouts, they would open up probably, close to their max unbroken set of toe to bar, not realizing how much fatigue it's creating because you don't necessarily feel it right away. And then the rest of the workout, all the pulling movements after that are just going to be super challenging. So that's just a big difference there on why I don't always recommend when I'm like an intermediate athlete or someone who's kind of new to the sport in terms of pushing on workouts like this. I don't always recommend that strategy. I recommend with smaller conservative sets so that you can kind of learn as you go. And then the next time you get done, you're like, okay, I think next time I could actually do sevens.
Yeah.
You learn a lot more that way.
Matt's kip still looks really strong. He's getting his legs up to the bar relatively easily. You can see when David jumps up, just kind of quickly touch on his kip, you can see how much more work it's taking. I think hip flexors are starting to blow up, maybe quads are blowing up a little bit. Yeah, so, and that happens to a lot of people. That's 80 toe to bar that they have to go through in this workout. Just keep that in mind.
Solid squat snatch for Matt.
That 95-pound
Great
squat
start to
snatch.
the opening final set of 50 overhead squats. All right, let's see how big he goes on these.
So it was 35 in the first set. I'm going to guess that he does not do 35 on the second set. I would say, though, on the back
I'm not
half,
counting right now, are you?
No, I'm not counting either. If you're finishing with 50 overhead squats in this workout and you're a higher level athlete.
That was not 35.
It was not. Try to push yourself on the first set. I know that we've been talking about pacing the entire time, but if there's only 50 reps left of one singular movement, especially at a lighter load, do a big set to start and then settle into it. Come up with a game plan after that. Maybe you do 15. It's like, okay, now I'm going to do a couple sets of 10 and then some 5s to finish.
What would you recommend? There's two strategies on how you can do the overhead squats in regards to speed. Do you think it's better to move fast, focus on quick contraction speed and get the bar off of you, or hold on to it and kind of grind where Matt's like taking a little brief pause at the top of each rep, getting a breath of air in?
I'm a huge proponent of moving fast, but like we talked about earlier, you have to train that. You can't train slow with all of these movements in interval style before a Metcon and then all of a sudden go into a test like this and then try to go fast because you're going to blow up too soon. So if you're doing intervals, like if you're in compete, all those speed-based days where we have like a 30-second EMOM where every minute you're doing overhead squats and the other minute you're doing double unders, when you're doing the overhead squats, they should be fast for 20 or 30 seconds, whatever the prescribed weight and prescribed time is. Move as quickly as you can and get used to training that speed so that you can do it in a test.
Yeah, and I think those speed-based intervals are super important too, especially for those of you watching this that might get like near time capped in the overhead squats. Let's say you have like 25 seconds left. That movement speed training we do is so important at that point because you can actually catch a few people that are, like close to a few reps ahead of you if you go over and you can like run up and sprint and actually squat with good speed.
Especially on a worldwide leaderboard like the Open or quarterfinals. At 3 or 4 reps could be 100 spots easily.
Yeah, so I think that, another strategy is making sure that you really take advantage of the eccentric going down on an overhead squat like this. So I try to make sure that I'm almost like turning my legs off as I drop down and bounce out of these as I continue to accumulate fatigue in the overhead squat. Yeah. Because holding those big sets is just like the TV's
if you guys are wondering why we're stuttering here, the TV's not working. We're talking over it. We've seen this workout, so we know what we're talking about.
It's a nasty grind. And I feel like I've finished workouts with overhead squats in CrossFit so many times that it's just a gross finisher. All right, Matt wrapped it up. He looks like he's in some pain, but not too much pain.
Blazing fast, by the way.
He's probably going to go for a 3-mile run now. Actually, probably not. He's probably going to go do a bunch of strength work. But
one thing I would say with Matt and with David,
wait a minute. How is he sitting on that paper thin plate like that?
Get my buttocks.
Mine would fold like the class doing
the
power snatches with.
Or you would fold.
Oh, the plate would fold.
Just break it half.
That's so impressive. It looks so uncomfortable.
Mike was talking about a few minutes ago, turning off his legs and dropping to the bottom, which I think actually is a pretty good strategy. One thing I like to do is widen my stance out. The person that does this best is Noah Olson. If you guys go to YouTube and just watch Noah do a squat clean or an overhead squat, he has a super wide stance, and what it allows him to do is move really fast where he can drop to the bottom, but his hip crease is barely below his knee as opposed to him bottoming out like he normally would if he had a narrow stance.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something you have to practice in training.
Oh, for sure.
Because you need to make sure that you're,
adductor.
yeah, exactly. It's a lot of strain on the adductor. You also need to make sure you're hitting the depth, but it can make a massive difference, especially on 100 squats in a workout, right? Like that, fraction of a second per every rep that you do adds up. All right, so David's finishing up here. Looks pretty good, hanging in there. Matt is recovering slowly.
I think one quick note here, since we are focusing on David now, he came back in and redid this workout. He jumped in and did this with Matt as just like basically a favor to him to pace him. Then they reviewed the workout. One thing David's doing right now is he reviews every single workout, and he counts his reps, sees if he has any no reps, and he miscounted his overhead squats in this last set, and I think some of the bar muscle ups. And so he and Max talked about it, and they came back in, and he did the workout with a judge. I think it's really important when you're doing it in this scenario. If you want to compete and you want to be at the highest level, like, you need to do it perfectly the first time. But if you don't, then come back in, figure it out, and crush it the second time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next best action is to come back and try again and do a better job, and he did that. So, Dave was trying to make a semifinal, and sometimes that's what it takes, is coming back in and doing something that's nasty that you don't want to do. I mean, even the quarterfinal process, we talk about how short the time windows are to repeat workouts, but a lot of people redid them in quarterfinals. So I think it's important to be prepared to do that.
And I think his time ended up being 2 seconds slower than Matt. So wherever Matt just ended, when he redid it, he got.
So he executed much better.
Yep. Cool. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing the demo.
Matt.
Good luck, everyone.
I'll give you some Vegemite, mate.
W, winner. Winner, chicken dinner.
Advice for the peeps?
Don't be too concerned with how big your sets are. Just try and keep yourself moving fast, keep your reps short. Sort on my toaster bar and overhead squats at the end. Shorter rest and shorter sets was good.
Yep.
Don't give in on the last set of overhead squats. Just hurts. Deal with it.
That it?
Yep, that's all I got.